Hi, everyone. My name is Alex, and my life is in complete chaos right now. The thing is, every member of my family is dying, and it seems to be my fault. My 16th birthday was just awful. My parents, instead of just giving me money for a present, decided to give me the best party of my life. The idea was good, but they were guided by their own view, and I was not even asked about the guests. The place, the style, and everything else was also done as they liked. I wanted to celebrate this day with my friends at a fancy nightclub with dancing and girls. Maybe I would like to go to the cinema for the last show or hang out at the amusement park. It doesn't matter how, but for me, it was important that everything would be funny, modern, and with my friends. Friends are the core moment in this issue. Without them, what was happening would be meaningless. But parents, yeah. For some reason, they thought at my super cool party I could not do without all my relatives and my grandma at the head of the table. It didn't mean I wasn't happy to see them. I was even willing to overlook my grandma's habit of folding up her false teeth next to her plate. It was just, a barbecue with relatives and didn't look like a super big cool birthday party at all. I was told that the next day I can do whatever I want, and I was even promised to get money for the entertainment, but it was not the same, as you can see. By the way, my parents had never fulfilled their promise, and I have no idea why. Most likely, it depended on something about the money and some unnecessary spending. I didn't want to ask them. My friends weren't invited either, because Grandma will have a stroke if she'd see, for example, Max in his green hair or Natasha in her favorite mini skirt and heels. So those people who were really interesting to me were excluded from this party. And on my birthday, I sat across from my grandma, laughed at her false teeth, and listened to the typical, "You've grown so fast, and probably soon you will present your bride to us." By the middle of the evening, all I wanted to do was to disappear somewhere with a chair and a piece of my birthday cake. It was a shame, unpleasant, and terribly offensive that the most important holiday of the year, besides the first coming of the age, I was spending in such strange company. The gifts didn't make me happy either. Relatives, by tradition, were guided by the usefulness of what they handed to me. But in fact, the really useful things there were only socks from my grandma. She knitted them herself. They're warm and cozy, and in winter it is cold enough in our house, so 100% I was going to wear them. Other things like a tie with the image of badgers from an aunt or a diary from my older sister, junk. It would be better just to give me money for a present. If you have relatives who are also the masters of the stupid gifts, write in the comments. Let's start our own underground club of relatives with stupid gifts haters. Yeah. And it seemed that it wasn't enough for the codenamed birthday torture. My cousins made a terrible mockery of it all throughout the evening. I also silently hated them all, especially my two older cousins, who also had the time to rummage in my room just out of spite. When my mom brought the cake in, I had only one wish in my head, that everyone would be dead, that everyone had never been anywhere. At that moment, I really wanted to be an orphan, the only person in the universe, anything but being a member of this family. And with that thought, I blew out the candles. Maybe my wish may seem rude, unfair, or downright stupid to some of you. But tell me, have any of you ever made a wish for a cake to come true? Or are there any desires at all which happened? Even the simplest ones? I didn't have any, so there can't be any complaints. In fact, nothing had changed, at least that evening. Around 10, everyone decided I was still tired enough from all this procession, so they went home and left. Then, me and my parents cleaned the backyard and went to our bedrooms, and the devil didn't come out of hell to eat their souls. It happened later, exactly 2 months later, on the same date, the 15th. My parents came home from work. My dad usually finished with his office work earlier and picked my mom up on the way from school, where she taught drawing to the first graders. And on their way, almost 200 meters from the house, their car flew off the bridge into the river. They were unlucky twice. First, because it happened at all, and second, when it turned out there were no witnesses of the accident. We live in a small town, and there weren't any other cars on the road that time, so all the neighbors were already sitting in their living rooms, drinking their evening tea. So I only found out that something was wrong with my parents in the middle of the night. Someone from the passers-by noticed the bridge was damaged and called the repair team, and after that, the team called the rescuers. So it turned out that my parents were gone. They could not get out of the sinking car. Besides, the examination said my mom was completely unconscious when it happened. It was like a nightmare. Of course, I didn't associate it with my birthday desire because, well, it's stupid. Then I had only grief, huge as the ocean, fulfilled with my tears. I became an orphan. My parents were dead, and there was nothing stupid left in my head. My mom's sister, my aunt, took me in. She was a good woman, perhaps the most adequate of our entire family. She was doing well, but I was still crying about my mom and dad. And she was crying with me, by the way. Then, a month later, my grandma passed away. Her heart just stopped when she was sleeping. But here, no one was particularly surprised. She was already very old. She was more than 90. And everyone was just glad everything turned out for her so peacefully. She even had a smile on her face. And then the situation started to get out of control. The 15th of my birth date was a fateful moment. First, my parents were gone, then my grandma, and then my uncle, and he didn't get off as easily as the others. My uncle worked using a sawmill. These are such large mechanical saws that cut logs into pieces, and it is better to never imagine it. But my uncle got into one of these mechanical saws. Then it had been one of my worst nightmares for a year. Then the whole family of my second aunt, my dad's sister, have gone at once. She, her husband, and two of my cousins, the nasty ones, also drowned, but in a much more romantic way than my parents. They were on vacation in the islands, and they rented a small yacht there. So they drowned together with it. By this time, everyone who was still alive was already tired of crying. And the funeral was held just like a duty, with absolutely dry eyes and a slight indifference on the faces. In fact, we were all afraid. The only family left was me, my aunt I lived with, my uncle and their daughter, and my second great uncle, who rarely spoke to the rest of the family, but he was considered an honorary member. In my opinion, he was against such an honor, and as he said, he saw us all in the coffin. Unfortunately, his words made real sense. So I did not even see him as my family at all. I thought this nightmare happened when my parents died, but it was just the beginning. We were all looking for the answers because most of what was happening looked like a curse. Well, how can you explain that all the relatives die after some on 15th day of the month? The survivors were looking for a sense, and I was most afraid that one of them would realize it was my fault they were all dead. I made this stupid wish, which for some reason began to come true very quickly. Unfortunately, my aunt also became a victim of my desires. No matter how much we all tried to stick together and protect each other, fate found her in her own home, in her own bed. She got up to drink some water and just choked with a glass of water. In complete safety, she just took a sip and choked. That's when I finally believed in the saying, "Be afraid of your desires." Now there are only 3 of us alive. Me, my second cousin Marie, and Kate, who is my younger cousin. She's only 14, and she can't sleep without lights anymore. She says all of our relatives come to her and ask her to follow them. As for me, that's seriously delusional. But I used to think about curses that they were nonsense. But now, I don't know. We all go to church, and the priest is saying this is just fate. Also, he told us to pray, to confess, and everything would be fine. He meant we are all God's creatures, and one day we will all be gone. Some go away earlier, and some later. Maybe he's right, but it all looks strange. As for me, just in case, every day before going to bed, I'm wishing my aunt and Kate will live to a very old age, in complete safety and comfort. I have only them now, And if something happens to them, it would be easier for me to die because it will be the end. First, in our country, boarding school is not a safe place to be. And second, I will not forgive myself, even if it's a really terrible coincidence. I've never believed in mysticism or the paranormal before. I thought magic was some kind of nonsense for stupid housewives and naive teenage girls. Well, it was for me like to tell a fortune to give you a nice husband or cook soup and pretend you're a witch in this moment. Something like that. Ghosts, curses, monsters from under the bed. It is something that simply cannot exist in our ordered modern world. And now, I really don't know. I want to believe that all this is just a series of terrible coincidences. It's easier for me to think this way, because if it's one big coincidence, I don't have to blame myself. But, with all these terrible events, it's getting harder to believe in its randomness. Recently, Kate got sick. She woke up with a cough, and for the second week, she has been in the hospital with a strong pneumonia. Doctors say something about the fluid in her lungs, a bad reaction to the medication, and that we need to hope for the better. But we just don't have faith anymore. Write in the comments what you think happened to my family. Do you believe in the paranormal? Share this video with those who like to wish everyone evil. And remember that sometimes the words you say just can't be taken back because there is no one to return them to.